Chair.
Thank you. Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley, and to each of you and your families, congratulations. And thank you for raising your hand to serve and in some cases continuing to serve the public.
Thank you.
Mr. Mark, if I might, just tell me about the 22nd Amendment. What does it provide?
Ladies and gentlemen, today's Senate hearing turned into another example of why so many Americans are losing trust in political theater coming out of Washington. Senator Chris Coons tried to corner Trump judicial nominees with questions about President Trump and a possible third term, but instead of delivering the dramatic moment Democrats were hoping for, the exchange exposed something much bigger: the growing pressure being placed on judges and nominees to give politically approved answers on command. Before we get started, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our daily coverage of the biggest political clashes shaping America.
The 22nd Amendment, Senator, my career has mostly been in criminal prosecution. I haven't had an opportunity to use that one specifically.
Anyone able to help on the 22nd Amendment to the United States Constitution?
Well, Senator, I believe it is the amendment that deals with a two-term limitation on
Correct.
the service
It
of the
states
president.
no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. Mr. Mark, is President Trump eligible to run for president again in 2028?
Senator, without considering all the facts and looking at everything, depending on what the situation is, this to me strikes as more of a hypothetical of something that could be
It's not a
raised.
hypothetical. Has President Trump been elected president twice?
President Trump has been certified the President of the United States 2 times.
Is he eligible to run for a third term under our Constitution?
I would have to review the
All I need to
actual
tell
wording
you
of
is
it.
the language of the constitutional amendment that makes it clear that no, he is not eligible to run for a third term. Anybody else brave enough to say that the Constitution of the United States prevents President Trump from seeking a third term? Anybody willing to apply the Constitution by its plain language in the 22nd Amendment? Nobody. All right, let's move on. Mr. Coons, what is res judicata? How does it apply?
It's a judicial doctrine that prevents a judgment that has been, in one case, applies to a, you can't go into court after a final judgment in one case and have it, and litigate the same things again.
How is that distinct from collateral estoppel, which precludes litigating the same things?
Res judicata, one involves the same party, the other involves the same things.
And what's a requirement for these two doctrines to apply?
Notice, opportunity to be heard, final judgment of a court of competent jurisdiction.
Anyone disagree? If I might, Mr. Coons, is it pronounced the same way mine is? Or
Yes, it is.
Coons?
Yes, Senator.
My family's name was spelled that way when we came to the country. So, you were one of 3 judges on the panel in Alexander v. Trump, where the president was suing the Pulitzer Prize Board for defamation. When did your work on that case begin? When were you assigned this case to decide?
I first learned of that case in approximately January of 2025.
Not when the briefs had been filed?
No, Senator. The way it works in our court is we are not assigned cases when the briefs are filed. Once the case is ready for disposition, the clerk randomly assigns it to the judges in the court.
And when did you first speak to Senator Scott's office about your interest in a district court seat in the Southern District of Florida?
I mean, I've had many conversations with Senator Scott's office. The one about an interest in the Southern District of Florida, I believe, was in November of 2024. I don't know the date, but it's in my Senate Judiciary questionnaire.
And when did you release the opinion ruling in President Trump's favor in this matter?
So I learned of the case in January of 2025, and the opinion was released in, I believe it was February 12th, 2025.
That's correct. So you issued an opinion where one of the litigants before you was the president and in favor of the president while you were in active conversation with the senator's office about seeking a federal judicial appointment. Is that correct?
For a position I did not, in fact, get, Senator.
How did you end up in front of me today?
It's a different position, Senator.
Did you consider recusing yourself from that particular decision?
No, and the canons that govern us in Florida, Senator, as I believe this committee has previously heard, it did not call for me to recuse myself. I did not have an interest in the litigation, and none of the basis called for recusal, and the Florida Supreme Court instructs us, the appellate judges, that we are not to recuse unless one of the bases in Canon 3 exists.
Does the Florida canons not require you to recuse if one of the parties before you has an interest that could be reasonably concluded by any common citizen to cloud your judgment on that matter?
Senator, I disagree with that characterization. I had not heard from the White House until after the opinion was final. I had only spoken
When
to
did you interview with the White House counsel's office?
at the end of February of 2025. I don't know the date, but I believe it's in my Senate Judiciary questionnaire.
Thank you for your testimony on that matter. Mr. Hendershot, if you would just take a minute and talk me through again how collateral estoppel and res judicata are different from each other.
Senator, I'm not sure I can improve much on Judge Coons. I think that often res judicata today is used as sort of a catch-all term, but generally I think the difference is between claims and claims that may have not been brought but could have been brought potentially.
Right.
So collateral estoppel and res judicata is more a thing actually decided, as the Latin would suggest.
Thank you. Do you agree that judges should not be influenced by external pressure to rule in any particular way?
Yes, Senator, I do.
President Trump stated March of this year at a public event, quote, "We have rogue judges that are criminals. They're criminals, what they do to our country, the decisions they hand down and hurt our country. Is it possible for a judge's decision to be correct as a matter of fact and law, even if it differs from the president's desired outcome?"
Senator, I want to tread carefully because of Canon 5 in terms of commenting on political matters, but in the abstract, yes, decisions can be correct, and any citizen can criticize what a judge has done. That is, I think, part of their right to speak.
Thank you. Thank you all for your testimony.
Yeah. Mr.
The hearing started with Senator Chris Coons asking about the 22nd Amendment, which limits presidents to 2 elected terms. Coons pushed one nominee to directly say whether President Trump could legally run again in 2028. Now here's where things got interesting. Instead of jumping into a politically charged answer during a confirmation hearing, the nominee responded cautiously and said he would need to fully review the constitutional issue before giving a definitive legal opinion. That answer clearly frustrated Coons, who immediately tried to portray the moment as if the panel was refusing to acknowledge the Constitution itself. But let's be honest here, judicial nominees are not supposed to act like cable news commentators. Their job is to interpret the law carefully, avoid prejudging future legal questions, and remain neutral. That's exactly what these nominees appeared to be trying to do. And yet Democrats acted shocked that judicial candidates wouldn't instantly give a politically satisfying soundbite. At one point, Coons dramatically asked if anyone on the panel was brave enough to state that Trump could not seek a 3rd term. Nobody took the bait, and the silence in the room immediately became the headline moment. But the hearing didn't stop there. Coons then shifted into questioning involving legal doctrines like res judicata and collateral estoppel, testing nominees on procedural law and prior court rulings. The exchange highlighted how confirmation hearings are increasingly becoming political spectacles rather than serious evaluations of judicial philosophy and constitutional understanding. The most serious part of the hearing came when Coons questioned one nominee about a case involving President Trump and whether the judge should have recused himself while simultaneously seeking a federal appointment. The nominee pushed back firmly, explaining that Florida judicial ethics rules did not require recusal and that he had no direct involvement with the White House before the ruling was issued. Again, whether people agree or disagree politically, the important issue here is judicial independence and following established legal standards, not media pressure or partisan narratives. And that brings us to the bigger picture. What Americans are witnessing more and more is an effort to force judges, nominees, and public officials into ideological loyalty tests instead of discussing constitutional interpretation calmly and responsibly. Too many hearings now revolve around viral moments, political traps, and media clips designed for outrage. The Constitution matters. Judicial independence matters. And senators should be focused on whether nominees will uphold the law fairly, not whether they can deliver a headline-friendly attack against President Trump. At the end of the hearing, one nominee acknowledged something very important. Judges can issue legally correct decisions even when politicians dislike the outcome. That statement alone may have been the most important moment of the entire exchange, because in America, courts are supposed to follow the law, not political pressure. What did you think about this Senate showdown? Was Senator Coons asking legitimate constitutional questions, or was this another political trap designed to create headlines about President Trump? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in fair coverage, constitutional government, and honest political analysis, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with others who are tired of the political games in Washington. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.